What is up, my fellow Chibits? Hopefully all of you are having a very, very wonderful day today, because today I'm here to bring all of you the weekly anime review of Food Wars Season 2. So, Food Wars Season 2, it's almost over. It's almost GG to Season 2. It's kind of sad to see that happening, but all good things must come to an end. And if there's one thing that this latest arc of Food Wars has done, it has made me gain a lot more interest in this series, because, gotta be honest here, when it came to the direction of this arc, it's completely different compared to the other things we've seen from Food Wars, because majority of the time when it comes to Food Wars, it's always food competitions. It's always where people are going against each other, trying to compete who makes better food. That's kind of usually the direction of Food Wars. Now, I'm not saying every single arc is like that, because there's different arcs and different meanings behind the arcs and stuff, but majority of the time, Food Wars is focused on contests and stuff, and people competing against each other who makes the better dish. And the direction of this arc, especially with this episode alone, really just brings more to the table and allows me to appreciate this series' entirety instead of just for the food competitions, because I've been learning quite a bit from Food Wars these past two episodes. As I talked about last week's episode, I learned quite a bit of information about restaurants and stuff, and then with this episode, I learned a lot about pre-openings and stuff. I never knew about that. I literally never knew about that. I heard something about it, but I didn't really know the entire meaning of what pre-openings meant, to how it lasted for over a week, to how a bunch of people you invite come in and dine at your restaurant. I mean, I learned a lot from this episode, and I mean, that's stuff I really like to see when I sit down and either read a manga or watch an anime. I like to learn. I mean, getting these little details on the side and learning while I'm watching a show, it's the best of both worlds, and that's exactly what Food Wars did with this week's episode. I mean, the entire introduction of how, pre-openings work really made me kind of impressed. I mean, a lot of big restaurants most likely do this, and also seeing how, like, Shinomiya, how he was prepping everything, he was inviting certain individuals, like his close friends or whatever, to the restaurant, before he could give them dishes, change the menu every day to figure out what he needs to do. It's rather impressive, and I really like the dynamic of this arc and the way it's showcasing, like, the inner scope of how the restaurant industry actually works, besides just competitions with food. And I feel like this is some really great development for a lot of characters we're getting, like especially with last week's episode and now this week's episode. Soma's development is just so fucking awesome. Seeing how he's like sitting after the work, like after he's completely done with work, after he's done working the restaurant with Shinomiya, he actually sits down and he starts thinking how he can improve himself for the better. He's not just trying to make unique dishes, he's trying to refine his technique, and that is something I like to see. And I love how this arc is literally focused on character development. See, one of the big things about, Soma, what he's trying to do right now is trying to figure out what could be his specialty, what could be his main dish, something that everybody knows him by, and it's unique to him. He's trying to figure out what he can do, and amongst his journey right now, trying to figure out what type of specialty he can make, he's trying to refine his techniques, and we get to see how he's taking everybody's techniques throughout this episode and encompassing it into himself to where he can actually become an even better chef. Let's say one chef is very good at making like fish type food, and then another chef is good at making pizza type food, like cutting it in a certain way. That's kind of what Soma's doing. He's taking all these different techniques and bringing it into himself where he can become better. And I mean, he was asking people throughout his entire week, like, okay, so how do you cut this? How should I do this? Like, do I cut it like this? Do I move this like this? I mean, he was asking all sorts of questions, and that made me rather happy with his character, because one of the big things that people don't understand, when you're trying to learn, not everybody's going to come to you and just teach you everything. I mean, majority of the time in life, you need to actually go out of your way to learn things. You can't just expect everybody to give you the answer, everybody to hold your hand and give you your entire path to where you need to go. And that's what Shinomiya was doing in this episode. There's one thing I have to say. I may not have been a big fan of Shinomiya in the past, especially in Season 1, especially with his just asshole attitude, but when it came to his teachings in this episode and how he's just mellowed out, he's a way better character, especially as a mentor. Because this man, the way he stated to everybody, like, I'm not going to hold his hand, that was the best advice he could give him. Because one of the big things that Soma needs to do right now, he needs to be able to overcome these challenges by himself without anyone holding his hand, and it's kind of of like he needs to gain all this knowledge by himself. He needs to put in the effort to continuously improve himself, and that is what he's doing. He's taking his own time out of his day, even going so far as to not have any sleep that night, just for he can improve himself. Now, this isn't something entirely new when it comes to Soma's character. We do know this is a man that usually stays up rather late, or someone that will spend many hours trying to figure out what he needs to make for the next competition, but Soma's taking it to a new level. He's trying to get so many techniques and learn them before he can become better and then use it in the next type of like situation he has when he's in like a cooking competition. He can actually use something like that. And the most impressive thing about all this is how Soma was having to try to integrate into Shinomiya's kitchen and try to figure out how he could kind of work and continue to make food while keeping the schedule in the diner and all the people in the restaurant now like completely satisfied and happy. Because one of the big things about restaurants, and I've personally been in a couple of restaurants when I was in Florida and also in Tennessee, you have it to where when you sit down at a fancy restaurant, you're at your table or something, and you order some food. Let's say like you just want to order some biscuits, and when you order yourself some form of fettuccine alfredo, something like that, okay? You order all this, and you have to wait like 15-20 minutes. You're like, what the fuck? I'm waiting so damn long for my food. Eventually a waiter comes out, it's like, I'm sorry sir, I'm sorry, we have to delay it for another 5 minutes, it's taking too long. That's kind of what we see in this episode. We see if one chef, one person makes a mistake, the entire crew gets hurt. And this is something that Soma needed to learn, because majority of the time throughout Food Wars, he's always by himself. I mean, think about it. Think about this right now, okay? Think about the practices of Food Wars when it comes to his school he's currently in. Majority of the food competitions are usually solo. You usually are by yourself. I mean, there's been cases of pairs and stuff, but majority of the time, you're by yourself. You have to work on dishes by yourself and overcome these challenges by yourself. Now, I know I was saying that you should overcome challenges by yourself, but also this episode was trying to make it to where you need to take the effort to learn by yourself, but you also need to know that you need to understand that you can't do everything by yourself. You need to work as a unit. You need to work as a team. If you don't have that, you cannot be a good chef in the kitchen, because you need to be able to work with everyone, because no person, if you run a restaurant, is going to be by themselves cooking food, unless it's a very small restaurant. There's just no way in fuck you're going to be by yourself cooking a bunch of food for people and being able to do all the type of stuff if you have a lot of orders coming in. So Soma was learning a valuable lesson. He needs to know how to operate amongst everybody else in the kitchen, because if he makes one mistake and he slows down, he fucks up the entire pacing. And also, if he goes too fast, he probably could fuck up the entire pacing as well. And he also needs to know that he does need to know how to do things by himself as well. So there's a lot of complicated emotions and situations here that Soma needs to learn to overcome and face before he can become a better chef. So well done, Food Wars. Well done, Food Wars. So overall, this episode, I'm proud of it. I'm very happy to see the character development we got. Shinomiya definitely moving up into one of my personal favorite characters after what he did in this episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.